Dr. Amanda Wright stared at the holographic display, her coffee gone cold beside her keyboard. The numbers couldn't be right, but they were. After 15 years of research, countless failed experiments, and 3 nearly career-ending setbacks, she had done it. "Robert," she called out, her voice echoing through the empty lab. "Robert, get in here." Dr. Robert Nash rushed in from the break room, half a sandwich still in his hand. "What's wrong? Did the quantum simulation crash again?" "No," Amanda said, pointing at the swirling blue patterns on the display. "Look at the stability readings. We didn't just contain it. We controlled it." Robert dropped his sandwich on a nearby desk and leaned in close to the screen, his eyes widening as he processed the data. The simulation showed a perfect micro-singularity, held stable by their new quantum containment field. But unlike previous attempts, this one wasn't just sitting there. It was responding to their commands, expanding and contracting in a controlled pattern. "That's impossible," he whispered, but his fingers were already flying across the keyboard, checking and rechecking the numbers. The energy requirements alone should have been astronomical. Amanda finished for him. "But look at the power readings. We're doing it with less energy than it takes to power a small town." The discovery had started 3 years ago, when Amanda noticed an odd pattern in their failed experiments. Every time they tried to create a controlled singularity, the space-time fabric would tear in exactly the same way, like a piece of cloth ripping along its weave. Most scientists would have seen this as another failure, but Amanda saw it as a clue. "Space-time isn't uniform," she had told Robert back then. "It has a structure, like a fabric. We've been trying to punch through it, but what if we could follow its natural patterns instead?" Now, standing in their lab at midnight, they watched as their simulation showed exactly that, a controlled unweaving of space-time itself. Robert pulled up a chair and sat down heavily. "Do you realize what this means?" Amanda nodded, her hands trembling slightly as she typed in new parameters. "It means we can create stable wormholes. Not just theoretical ones, real, usable passages through space-time." "The military's going to want this," Robert said quietly. "The whole world's going to want this," Amanda corrected him. "This isn't just faster than light travel, Robert. This is something entirely new. We're not breaking the laws of physics. We're working with them in a way nobody has ever thought of before." She pulled up another simulation, this one showing a larger scale application. A ship, roughly the size of a naval destroyer, surrounded by a web of quantum containment fields. In front of it, space-time itself seemed to fold and part, creating a path that bypassed normal space entirely. "It's like..." Robert paused, searching for the right words. "It's like we're teaching ships to eat their way through space-time, following the natural grain of reality itself." Amanda smiled. "Exactly. Instead of brute-forcing our way through space-time, we're finding the places where it naturally wants to fold and helping it along." They spent the next few hours running simulation after simulation, testing different configurations and scenarios. Each success made their excitement grow. By the time the sun began to rise, casting long shadows through the lab's windows, they had a solid theoretical framework for what would soon be called the Wright Nash drive. "We need to tell someone," Robert said, rubbing his tired eyes. "This is too big to keep to ourselves." Amanda was already drafting an email to the head of their department. "We tell Dr. Stanley first, then we go through proper channels. If we're right about this, and I think we are, we need to be very careful about how we present it." Just then, their lab's security system pinged, announcing an unexpected visitor. Both scientists turned to see Dr. Stanley himself walking through the door, looking concerned. "I got some very strange energy readings from your lab last night," he said without preamble. "Please tell me you haven't broken anything expensive." Amanda and Robert exchanged glances. "Actually, sir," Amanda said, "we need to show you something. We've made a breakthrough." As they explained their discovery to Dr. Stanley, his expression changed from skepticism to astonishment. By the time they finished showing him the simulations, he was sitting in stunned silence. "Do you have any idea," he finally said, "what this will mean for humanity?" "We have some idea," Robert replied, "but we need to be careful. The implications are staggering," Dr. Stanley finished. He stood up, straightening his jacket. "I'm calling an emergency meeting of the board. This changes everything." Over the next few weeks, their small lab became the center of intense activity. More scientists were brought in, all under strict security clearance. The simulations were run thousands more times, each success building upon the last. Engineers began drawing up plans for a prototype device that could test the theory in real conditions. Amanda found herself working 18-hour days, but she barely noticed the time passing. This was what she had dreamed of since she was a little girl reading science fiction novels under her blanket with a flashlight. They weren't just pushing the boundaries of science, they were redrawing them entirely. One evening, as she was reviewing the latest test results, Robert brought her a fresh cup of coffee and sat down beside her. "I did some calculations," he said. "With this drive, we could reach Alpha Centauri in less than an hour. Mars would be minutes away. The entire solar system would become our backyard." Amanda took a sip of coffee, considering this. "We're not ready for that yet. We need to start small, prove the concept works in real space." "The prototype ship is already being designed," Robert reminded her. "They're calling it the NSV Hawking. Seems fitting." "The Hawking," Amanda repeated softly. "He would have loved this, you know. The way we're using quantum mechanics to fold space-time. It's exactly the kind of elegant solution he always looked for." Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent call from one of their monitoring stations. A young technician's face appeared on their main screen, looking excited. "Dr. Wright, Dr. Nash, you need to see this," he said, transmitting data to their displays. "We just picked up something strange from the Jupiter observation posts." The data showed unusual gravitational readings, tiny distortions in space-time that shouldn't have been there. Amanda leaned forward, her heart racing. "Are those natural phenomena?" she asked, although she already suspected the answer. "No, ma'am," the technician replied. "They're artificial, and they're not ours." Robert and Amanda looked at each other, the same thought crossing their minds. They weren't alone in the universe, and whoever was out there had noticed their experiments. "Tell Dr. Stanley," Amanda said firmly, "and increase power to the quantum sensors. I want to know everything about these distortions." As the technician signed off, Robert turned to her. "You know what this means, don't you? We're not just changing humanity's future anymore." Amanda nodded, her eyes fixed on the strange readings from Jupiter. "We're about to change everything. For everyone." Outside their lab, the sun was setting on another day on Earth, but for humanity, a new dawn was approaching, one that would reshape their understanding of the universe and their place in it. The Wright Nash drive wasn't just a new technology, it was humanity's key to the stars. And somewhere out there, watching from the darkness of space, others had begun to take notice. The NSV Hawking gleamed under the artificial lights of the Luna shipyards. Captain Daniel Cole walked slowly around the ship, taking in every detail of what would soon be his command. The vessel looked like a cross between a naval destroyer and a scientific research vessel, its hull covered in a web of intricate quantum containment panels that gave it an almost scaly appearance. "She's beautiful, isn't she?" Laura Peters, the ship's chief engineer, stepped up beside him. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and she carried a tablet filled with final system checks. "Beautiful and terrifying," Daniel replied. "Are we really ready for this?" Laura nodded, pulling up the latest test results. "All simulations are green. Dr. Wright and Dr. Nash have personally checked every calculation. If we're ever going to test this technology, now's the time." The past 6 months have been a blur of preparation. After the discovery of alien observers near Jupiter, the project had been fast-tracked. The NSV Hawking wasn't just humanity's first space-time dry ship. It was their response to the realization that they weren't alone in the universe. Kevin Martinez, the navigation officer, joined them on the observation deck. "Final nav systems are online, Captain. We can plot a course whenever you're ready." Daniel turned to face his two senior officers. "What do you think about our chances of survival?" "About 99%, Laura said with a small smile. "Of making history, 100%. The three of them watched as ground crews made their final checks. The Hawking would carry a crew of 50 for its first test flight, volunteers who understood the risks and were willing to face them for the chance to make history. In her temporary office overlooking the shipyard, Dr. Amanda Wright was reviewing the final data with Robert Nash. "The containment fields are stable," she said, more to herself than to him. "The space-time sensors are calibrated perfectly." "It's not the technology I'm worried about," Robert admitted. "It's the unknown factors. We've never done this in real space before. The simulations can only tell us so much." Amanda looked up at him, having second thoughts. "No," he said firmly. "But I keep thinking about those alien observers. What if they try to interfere?" "That's why we're conducting the test in cislunar space," Amanda reminded him. "Close enough to Earth for immediate support, but in a controlled environment. Besides, our monitoring stations haven't detected any alien activity near Earth or Luna." The launch countdown began early the next morning. The Hawking's crew took their stations, each person acutely aware that they were about to attempt something unprecedented in human history. Captain Cole sat in his command chair, running through his final checks. "All stations, report." "Engineering ready." Laura's voice came through clear and confident. "Navigation ready," Kevin added. One by one, each station reported in. Daniel took a deep breath. "Control, this is NSV Hawking. We are go for launch." The massive doors of the lunar hangar slid open, revealing the star-filled blackness of space. The Hawking lifted off smoothly, its conventional engines carrying it clear of the shipyard. "Take us to test position Alpha," Daniel ordered. "Standard drive only for now." The ship moved to its designated starting point, 50,000 kilometers from the moon. From here, they would attempt their first space-time jump, a short hop that would take them to the far side of the moon. "Drive systems coming online," Laura reported. Her fingers danced across her console as she initiated the startup sequence they had practiced hundreds of times in simulation. "Quantum containment fields at full power, space-time sensors active." Kevin spoke next, his voice steady. "Course plotted. We'll emerge 20,000 kilometers above the moon's far side." Daniel opened a channel to all decks. "All hands, this is the captain. We're about to attempt our first jump. Secure all stations and prepare for possible turbulence." In their observation post, Amanda and Robert watched the telemetry flowing in from the ship. "The field geometry is perfect," Amanda said. "Energy levels exactly where they should be." On the Hawking's bridge, Daniel took one final look at his crew. "Engineering. Begin space-time drive sequence." The ship hummed with power as the quantum containment fields came fully alive. Through the bridge windows, they could see space itself beginning to ripple and unfold. "Space-time structure identified," Kevin reported, "following the natural grain, just like in the simulations." Laura's voice was tense with concentration. "Drive engaged. Creating controlled singularity in 3, 2, 1. The universe seemed to twist around them. There was no sensation of movement, but through the windows, they watched in awe as space-time parted before their ship like water before the bow of a boat. "My God," someone whispered on the bridge. The Hawking didn't so much move through space as it moved with it, following the natural patterns and folds in reality that Dr. Wright had discovered. For a brief moment, they existed in a state that defied conventional physics, not breaking the rules of space-time, but working within them in a way no human had ever done before. Then, as smoothly as it had begun, the jump ended. The moon's far side filled their view, exactly where it was supposed to be. "Position check," Daniel called out. Kevin checked his instruments. Exactly on target, Captain. 20,000 kilometers above the far side. The jump was perfect. Cheers erupted throughout the ship. They had done it. The first controlled manipulation of space-time in human history. But their celebration was cut short by an urgent call from Luna Control. Hawking, this is Control. We're detecting multiple anomalous readings near Jupiter. The alien observation posts are going crazy. Daniel shared a look with his senior officers. What kind of readings? Massive energy spikes. They're scanning the entire system, focusing on your position. Whatever you just did, they definitely noticed. Amanda's voice came through on a private channel. Captain, this is exactly what we expected. They're realizing that we've mastered controlled space-time manipulation. The next few minutes are crucial. Daniel nodded, even though she couldn't see him. Understood. Should we proceed with the second test? There was a pause before she answered. Yes. Show them it wasn't a fluke. Show them we can do it at will. All stations, Daniel called out. Prepare for second jump. Let's show our audience what humanity can do. The Hawking performed 5 more jumps, each one perfect, each one demonstrating complete mastery of the new technology. With each jump, the alien scanning became more intense. Finally, they received new orders from Earth Command. Return to Luna. They had proven their point. As they made their final approach to the shipyard, Laura looked up from her engineering station. Captain, do you think we just changed the course of human history? Daniel watched as the lunar surface grew larger in their view. No, he said quietly. I think we just changed the course of galactic history. In their observation post, Amanda and Robert were already analyzing the data from the test flight. But Amanda's mind was elsewhere, thinking about what would come next. The aliens had seen what humanity could do. The question now was, how would they respond? The NSV Hawking docked smoothly in its berth, its hull still humming with residual energy from the space-time drive. Its crew had just opened a new chapter in human exploration, but they had also sent a message to the stars. Humanity was ready to take its place among the spacefaring civilizations of the galaxy. And somewhere out there, that message was being received with growing alarm. Ambassador John Butler hadn't expected to handle first contact with an alien civilization from his office in Geneva. He certainly hadn't expected it to happen while he was drinking his morning coffee. But when the message came through on all frequencies in perfect English, he knew humanity's isolation was officially over. People of Earth, the transmission began. We are the Galactic Concordat. Your recent experiments with space-time manipulation have been noted. Cease these activities immediately. John set down his coffee and pressed the emergency alert button. Within minutes, his office filled with military officers, scientists, and government officials. Dr. Amanda Wright and Dr. Robert Nash arrived last, having been flown in from the lunar facility. They're using our own communication systems, one of the technical analysts reported. They've hacked into our satellite network. A second message arrived before they could respond to the first. This one included visual data, a holographic projection showing a massive fleet of ships near Saturn's orbit. The alien vessels were beautiful and terrifying, their designs unlike anything humans had imagined. I am High Commander Zixtal of the Zixathraxian Empire, leading member of the Concordat, a new voice announced. The alien that appeared in the hologram looked almost reptilian, with iridescent scales and multiple eyes. Your species has achieved what should be impossible. This violates natural law. John stepped forward, years of diplomatic training kicking in. High Commander, I am Ambassador John Butler of Earth. We assure you our achievements are the result of careful scientific research. We would welcome the opportunity to discuss. There is nothing to discuss, Zixthal interrupted. Your primitive species cannot possibly understand the forces you are tampering with. The Concordat has maintained peace in this galaxy for 10,000 years by preventing the development of reality-destroying weapons. Amanda whispered to Robert. They think the drive is a weapon. All space-time manipulation is weaponry, Zixthal continued as if hearing her. Your research threatens the fabric of reality itself. You have 24 Earth hours to surrender all data and cease operations." The transmission ended abruptly. The room erupted in urgent conversations, but John raised his hand for silence. "Dr. Wright," he said, turning to Amanda, "they seem to think your drive technology is dangerous." "Is it?" Amanda shook her head firmly. "No more dangerous than conventional space travel. We're not destroying space-time. We're working with its natural structure. That's why it requires so little energy compared to their assumptions." "Can you prove it?" "Give me an hour with their scientists, and I can show them exactly how it works." John nodded thoughtfully. "If they'll listen." He turned to the military officers. "What are we dealing with?" Admiral Lisa Powell stepped forward, pointing to the fleet data their sensors had gathered. "Their ships are advanced, but not invincible. The concerning part is their numbers. That fleet could easily overwhelm our defenses, unless we use the drive technology," Robert added quietly. Everyone looked at him. He continued, "Think about it. They're afraid of it because they don't understand it. They've probably been trying to brute force their way through space-time for millennia, while we found a way to work with it naturally." John considered this. "We need to respond carefully. If we appear threatening, they might attack. If we appear weak, they might try to subjugate us." He spent the next hour drafting a response with his team. When they finally transmitted it back to the Concordat, the message was diplomatic but firm. "High Commander Zexthal and the honored Galactic Concordat, we welcome you and appreciate your concern for the safety of spacetime. We invite your scientists to review our research and observe our methods. Our technology works with the natural structure of spacetime, not against it. We seek peaceful cooperation and knowledge exchange." The response came quickly and was not what they hoped for. "Your primitive understanding of physics blinds you to the danger," Zexthal declared. "We have observed species like yours before, young, arrogant, convinced of their own brilliance. The Concordat will not allow another catastrophe like the Centaurian collapse." Images flashed across their screens, a star system torn apart, space itself twisted into impossible shapes. "This was the result of unchecked space-time manipulation," Zexthal continued. "We will not permit it to happen again." Amanda studied the images carefully. "Their method was completely different," she said. "Look at the energy signatures. They tried to break through space-time. No wonder it failed catastrophically." John looked at her. "Can you explain the difference in terms they might understand?" "I can try," she said. She stepped forward and addressed the alien commander directly. "High Commander, imagine space-time as a fabric. Your people tried to tear through it, requiring enormous energy and creating dangerous instabilities. We've learned to unfold it along its natural seams, requiring minimal energy and causing no damage. The difference is fundamental." There was a long pause. When Zexthal spoke again, his tone was different, not convinced, but less hostile. "You will demonstrate this, under our supervision. Any sign of danger, and our fleet will act." The transmission ended. John let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "Well," he said, "that's something. Not quite the first contact humanity dreamed of, but at least they're willing to watch a demonstration." Admiral Powell wasn't as optimistic. "They're positioning their fleet in a combat formation. If this demonstration goes wrong—" "It won't," Amanda said firmly. "But we need to be ready for anything. They're not just afraid of the technology. They're afraid of what it means. We've achieved something they couldn't, and that threatens their position as guardians of galactic civilization." Robert nodded. "The Concordat maintains power by controlling access to advanced technology. We just bypassed their entire system of control." John looked out his window at the Geneva skyline, thinking about how humanity's greatest achievement had become its greatest diplomatic crisis. "We have 12 hours until they expect their demonstration," he said. "Let's make it count. Dr. Wright, Dr. Nash, prepare your best team. Admiral Powell, have the fleet ready, just in case, And someone get me more coffee. I have a feeling it's going to be a long day. As the room cleared out, Amanda stayed behind. Ambassador, she said, there's something else you should know. The way they reacted to our drive. I don't think they're telling us everything. Their fear seems personal, almost traumatic. John considered this. You think they've tried something similar before? I think they failed catastrophically, and now they're terrified of anyone succeeding where they couldn't. She paused. We're not just challenging their authority. We're challenging their entire understanding of the universe. Outside, the sun was setting on Geneva. In space, the alien fleet waited, their weapons primed. Humanity had just 24 hours to prove they could be trusted with their own discovery or face the consequences. The clock was ticking. Fleet Admiral Susan Reynolds stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching as 5 of humanity's newest ships moved into formation. Each vessel gleamed under the distant sunlight, their quantum containment panels pulsing with soft blue light. The NSV Hawking led the group, with Captain Daniel Cole now commanding humanity's most important space mission. All ships report ready, Admiral, her communications officer announced. The alien fleet hung in space near Saturn's rings, their massive ships arranged in an attack pattern. They had demanded a demonstration, but their actions showed they expected a fight. Open a channel to all ships, Susan ordered, and make sure our alien friends can hear it too. She took a deep breath before speaking. This is Fleet Admiral Reynolds. Today we show the galaxy that humanity doesn't just understand space-time. We work in harmony with it. Each ship commander knows their role. Let's make history. On the Hawking, Captain Cole looked at his crew. They had practiced this maneuver 100 times in simulation, but doing it in front of a potentially hostile alien fleet was different. Engineering, status, he called out. Laura Peters responded from her station. Drive systems at full power, Captain. Containment fields are stable and synchronized with the other ships. Navigation. Kevin Martinez nodded. Course plotted through the alien formation. If their ships don't move, we'll pass right through their firing lines without coming within 10 kilometers of any vessel. The plan was bold, perhaps too bold. 5 human ships would execute a synchronized space-time jump through the heart of the alien fleet, not to attack, but to demonstrate perfect control of their technology. In the ship's science lab, Dr. Amanda Wright and Dr. Robert Nash monitored the drive systems. They had insisted on being aboard for this demonstration, knowing that everything had to be perfect. The space-time fabric is clear, Amanda reported. I'm seeing natural full blinds exactly where we predicted. Robert checked his own readings. Energy levels are optimal. We're ready. On the Concordat flagship, High Commander Zexthal watched the human vessels with all 4 of his eyes. His science officer, a member of the ancient Meridian race, studied the readings with growing confusion. High Commander, the Meridian said, their power outputs are impossibly low for space-time manipulation. By our calculations, they shouldn't be able to generate even a minor distortion. Yet they do, Zexthal replied. Watch them carefully. At the first sign of a reality cascade, we open fire. Back on the Hawking, Captain Cole received the final authorization from Admiral Reynolds. All ships begin synchronized drive sequence on my mark. The 5 human ships moved into their starting positions. Each one powered up its right Nash drive, creating a harmonious pattern of space-time distortions that the alien sensors couldn't quite understand. Mark. What happened next would be remembered for centuries throughout the galaxy. The 5 ships didn't just jump through space. They danced with it. Space-time folded around them like silk in a breeze, opening paths that seemed to twist through dimensions the aliens had never imagined. The Hawking led the formation, its path cutting right through the center of the alien fleet. As they moved, they left behind not the violent tears the aliens feared, but beautiful, rippling patterns in space-time that closed naturally behind them. On the alien ships, alarms blared as sensors tried to make sense of what they were seeing. The human vessels were literally eating their way through space-time, but doing it so elegantly that reality itself seemed to heal in their wake. "Impossible," the Meridian science officer whispered. "They're not forcing their way through. They're being invited in." The human ships emerged from their jumps in perfect formation on the other side of the alien fleet. Not a single calculation had been off. Not a single ship had deviated from its course. And most importantly, not a single bit of damage had been done to the fabric of space-time. Admiral Reynolds smiled as she watched the sensor readings. "Send to all ships. Demonstration complete. Hold position and await response." The alien fleet remained silent for several long minutes. Finally, High Commander Zexthal's voice came through, sounding different than before. Less commanding, more thoughtful. "Admiral Reynolds," he said, "your species has achieved something we believed impossible. Our sensors confirm no damage to space-time, no energy cascade, no reality distortions." "How?" Susan nodded to Amanda, who had prepared for this question. The scientist stepped forward to answer. "High Commander," Amanda said, "for millennia, species have tried to conquer space-time through force. We chose instead to understand it, to work with its natural patterns. What you just witnessed wasn't a show of power, it was a demonstration of harmony." There was another long pause before Zexthal responded. "The Concordat has maintained peace through control of dangerous technologies. But perhaps we have been too focused on control and not enough on understanding." On the Hawkins Bridge, the crew held their breath. This was the moment that would determine humanity's place in the galaxy. "We request," Zexthal continued, "a full scientific exchange. Under controlled conditions, of course. The Concordat must understand this technology." Ambassador John Butler, who had been listening from Earth, quickly sent his response. The people of Earth would welcome such an exchange, under mutually agreeable terms. As the diplomats began their work, Captain Cole turned to his crew. "Well done, everyone. I think we just changed the galaxy's understanding of physics." Laura grinned from her engineering station. "Not bad for a primitive species, right?" In the science lab, Amanda and Robert were already analyzing the data from the jump. "Look at these readings," Amanda said excitedly. "The alien ships created a slight gravitational interference pattern. We could use that to make the drive even more efficient." Robert smiled. "Always the scientist. We just prevented an interstellar war, and you're thinking about drive improvements." "That's how we got here," she replied. "By never stopping asking questions, never stopping trying to understand." Admiral Reynolds sent one final message to her fleet. "All ships return to Earth orbit. Let's go home and make history official." As the human ships prepared for their return journey, the alien fleet began to reorganize itself, not into attack formation this time, but into an honor guard position. It was the highest form of respect the Concordat could show, an acknowledgement that they had encountered not just a new species, but a new way of thinking. The demonstration had done more than prove humanity's mastery of space-time technology. It had shown the galaxy that sometimes the greatest breakthroughs come not from forcing nature to obey, but from learning to work with it. As the Earth ships made their final jump home, they left behind a changed galaxy. The age of human isolation was over. The age of discovery was just beginning. And somewhere in the vast archives of the Galactic Concordat, a new entry was being written. Humanity, masters of space-time harmony. Lieutenant William Parker sat at his communications station aboard the NSV Hawking, recording everything. His job was simple but crucial: capture and analyze all alien transmissions during and after the demonstration. What he heard would change how humanity understood their place in the galaxy forever. By the Ancient Ones came a voice in what his translator identified as Zexthraxian. "Did you see how the space-time fabric responded to their ships? It's like watching water part for a skilled swimmer." Another voice, this one marked as Meridian. "Our sensors must be malfunctioning. No civilization should be able to achieve this level of control with such low energy output. We'll record it all. his fingers flying across his console as he tagged and categorized each transmission. The alien fleet was in chaos, not the panicked chaos of defeat, but the excited chaos of scientists witnessing something they had thought impossible. On the Zexathraxian flagship's bridge, High Commander Zexthal stood frozen, all four eyes fixed on the sensor displays. Around him, his crew worked frantically to analyze what they had just witnessed. High Commander, his science officer reported, the humans' method is completely different from anything in our archives. They're not forcing space-time to bend. They're asking it to fold. Zexthal's scales shifted color, showing his deep thought. Show me the energy readings again. The holographic display filled with data. Where Concordat ships would have needed the power of a small sun to attempt space-time manipulation, the human vessels had used less energy than a standard patrol ship's engines. Impossible, Zexthal whispered, but he had seen it with his own eyes. Back on the Hawking, Will noticed a sudden spike in encrypted transmissions between alien ships. He called out to Captain Cole, "Sir, I'm picking up heavy communication traffic. They're trying to hide it, but their encryption is breaking down under their own excitement." Captain Cole nodded. "Can you make sense of it?" "Yes, sir. They're arguing about us, about what to do next." Will listened intently. Some want to share technology immediately. Others are scared. But they're all amazed. Laura Peters spoke up from her engineering station. "Captain, their ships are scanning us. Not weapons scans. They're studying our drive systems." "Let them look," Cole replied. "That's why we're here." In the science lab, Amanda Wright and Robert Nash watched their own instruments with growing excitement. The alien scanning attempts were revealing almost as much about their technology as they were learning about the human ships. "Look at this," Amanda pointed to a reading. "Their scanning technology is incredible. We could learn so much from them." Robert nodded, but his attention was on another display. "Amanda, look at their ship designs. They built their entire civilization around brute force approaches to physics. No wonder they're shocked by our method." On Earth, Ambassador John Butler was receiving real-time updates from the Hawking. He turned to Admiral Reynolds, who stood beside him in the Geneva Command Center. "They're not just surprised," he said. "They're questioning their entire understanding of physics. This could reshape the balance of power in the galaxy." Susan Reynolds watched the tactical display carefully. "The question is, will they see it as an opportunity or a threat?" The answer came sooner than expected. High Commander Zexthal's voice boomed across all channels, no longer trying to sound threatening. "People of Earth, what we have witnessed today defies 10,000 years of Concordat science. Our ancestors believed space-time could only be mastered through overwhelming force. You have shown us another way." Will's console lit up as he recorded the reactions from other alien ships. Some crews were cheering. Others were muttering prayers in ancient languages. A few seemed to be demanding immediate action, though not hostile action. They wanted to learn. The Meridian science officer aboard Zexthal's ship spoke next, her translator making her musical language understandable to human ears. "We humbly request permission to begin scientific exchanges. Our civilizations have much to learn from each other." Amanda couldn't help but smile as she heard this. They've gone from threatening us to asking for lessons in less than a day. In the hours that followed, the mood throughout both fleets transformed. Alien scientists began sharing preliminary data with their human counterparts. Engineering teams exchanged basic principles. Even the military officers found common ground, discussing the tactical implications of the new technology. Will continued recording everything, building a precious archive of humanity's first real cultural exchange with alien civilizations. He captured a young Zexathraxian engineer excitedly explaining their propulsion technology. Meridian scientists debating the philosophical implications of space-time harmony. Military officers from 3 species discussing joint training possibilities. Cultural attaches hurriedly arranging future diplomatic meetings. But the most significant transmission came near the end of his shift. A private channel opened from the Zexathraxian flagship directly to the Hawking's bridge. "Captain Cole," High Commander Zexthal said, his voice now carrying respect rather than threat, "we owe your species an apology. We judged you by our own fears and limitations. The Concordat has maintained peace through power for millennia. Perhaps it is time we learn to maintain it through understanding instead." Cole shared a look with his crew before responding. "High Commander, we welcome the opportunity to learn from each other. Earth has much to share, but also much to learn." "Indeed." Zexthal paused. "Our historians will mark this day. The day we learned that mastery comes not from dominating nature, but from working with it." As the human ships prepared to return to Earth, Will made one final recording. It was a simple message being passed between alien ships, but it summed up everything. "They showed us that we've been asking the wrong questions for 10,000 years. Instead of asking how to break through space-time, we should have been asking how to dance with it." Amanda and Robert, reading the transcript later, couldn't help but feel proud. Humanity hadn't just proven itself to the galaxy. They had changed how the galaxy thought about physics itself. As the Hawking led the formation home, Will saved his final recording and added a personal note. "Today I heard the sound of a galaxy changing its mind. It sounds like wonder." Behind them, the alien fleet began to disperse, but not before forming an honor guard formation. Their weapons were powered down. Their sensors were focused on learning, not targeting. And their transmissions were filled not with fear, but with possibilities. The age of isolation was over. The age of cooperation was beginning. And it had started because humanity had chosen to work with nature rather than against it. 3 months after the Saturn demonstration, Dr. Amanda Wright stood on a stage in Stockholm, holding her Nobel Prize. Dr. Robert Nash stood beside her, holding his own. The applause was deafening, but it wasn't just humans clapping. Representatives from 12 alien species had come to witness the ceremony. For their groundbreaking discovery of space-time harmony theory and the development of the Wright-Nash drive, the presenter announced, "These scientists have not only advanced human knowledge, but have changed our understanding of the universe itself." Amanda looked out at the crowd. In the front row, she saw Captain Daniel Cole and his crew from the Hawking. Behind them sat High Commander Zexthal, his scales shimmering with respect colors. The Meridian Science Council had sent their entire leadership. Even the notoriously reclusive Velcari had emerged from their gas giant homes to attend. Later that evening, at the celebration dinner, Amanda found herself sitting between Robert and a young Zexathraxian scientist. "Tell me again," the alien asked, her translator making her excitement clear. "How did you first notice the pattern? How did you see what our civilization missed for 10,000 years? Amanda smiled, remembering that moment in her lab. "We stopped trying to force our way through the problem. When we looked at our failed experiments, we saw that space-time wasn't fighting us. It was trying to show us a better way." Across the room, Captain Cole sat with several alien ship commanders, explaining the practical aspects of the new technology. Laura Peters and Kevin Martinez had joined him, drawing diagrams on napkins to show how the drive worked with space-time's natural structure. "The key," Laura explained to a fascinated Meridian captain, "is the quantum containment field. It doesn't just hold the effect stable. It lets us feel the natural patterns in space-time, like reading Braille with your ship." At another table, Lieutenant William Parker shared his recordings from the demonstration with a group of alien communications officers. His detailed archive had become required study at both human and alien space academies. "Listen to this part," he said, playing a specific transmission. "This is the exact moment when your fleet realized we weren't breaking physics. We were working with it. The changes weren't limited to Earth. All across the solar system, human and alien engineers worked together to build a new generation of ships. The Wright-Nash drive was being combined with alien technologies in ways that neither civilization had imagined possible." Ambassador John Butler, watching the cooperation from his office in the new Galactic Embassy in Geneva, couldn't help but smile. On his desk sat the first draft of Earth's membership agreement with the Galactic Concordat. But unlike the previous member species, Earth was joining as an equal, not a junior partner. The vote is scheduled for next week, his alien assistant informed him. The Concordat Council is expected to approve Earth's membership unanimously. In lunar orbit, the NSV Hawking was being refitted with a combination of human and alien technology. Its quantum containment panels now shimmered with meridian crystal matrices, while Zixus Thraxian sensor arrays enhanced its ability to read space-time patterns. Admiral Susan Reynolds stood in the lunar observation deck, watching the work. Beside her, High Commander Zexthal observed with all four eyes. "Your species has achieved more in 3 months than most achieve in centuries," he said. "You've helped us see past our own limitations, and you've helped us avoid centuries of trial and error." Susan replied, "Together, we're stronger than either of us could be alone." Back on Earth, in the original lab where it all started, Amanda and Robert were working with a mixed team of human and alien scientists. The whiteboards were filled with equations in multiple languages, and holographic displays showed test results that would have seemed impossible just months ago. "Look at this," Robert said, pointing to a simulation. "If we combine our space-time harmony approach with meridian quantum fields, we could extend the effect to cover entire fleets," Amanda finished. "One ship could create a stable path for others to follow." A young human scientist burst into the lab, waving a tablet. "Dr. Wright, the first colony ship just completed its test jump to Alpha Centauri. 4 minutes total travel time." The room erupted in cheers, human and alien voices mixing together in celebration. Humanity's dream of reaching the stars wasn't just coming true, it was happening faster and more safely than anyone had imagined. In space academies across Earth, new cadets learn navigation in simulations developed by Kevin Martinez. His understanding of space-time harmonics had created a new field of study, quantum harmonic navigation. Laura Peters' engineering protocols had become the standard for both human and alien ships. The Peters sequence was now the official name for the drive activation process she had developed during the Hawking's first test flight. Captain Cole had been promoted to lead the new Joint Species Space Command, where he worked with alien officers to develop peaceful applications of the technology. The sight of human and alien ships training together had become common throughout the solar system. 1 year to the day after the Saturn demonstration, humanity celebrated another milestone. The first joint human-alien research vessel, the Harmony, launched from lunar orbit. Its crew was a mix of species, its technology a blend of traditions, its mission to explore and understand. As Amanda watched the launch from her lab, Robert brought her a cup of coffee, a habit they had maintained through all the changes. "Did you ever think," he asked, "when we were staring at those failed experiment results, that we'd end up here?" Amanda shook her head. "I thought we might change human space travel. I never imagined we'd change the galaxy's understanding of physics itself. And all because we learned to listen to what space-time was trying to tell us," Robert added. Outside their window, Earth's night sky looked different now. Alien ships moved in harmony with human vessels, their drives creating beautiful patterns in space-time that scientists could now detect and appreciate. The feared reality-destroying weapon had become a symbol of cooperation and understanding. The galaxy had changed. The old way of forcing nature to obey had given way to a new approach of working with it. And it had all started because 2 human scientists had decided to look at their failures differently. As the Harmony disappeared into its first space-time jump, its human and alien crew working together as one, Amanda smiled. They hadn't just taught the galaxy a new way to travel through space. They had shown them a new way to view the universe itself. The Age of Harmony had begun.